Hello everyone, this is me Himani Singh, your faculty for CUET MSW examination. Today we'll be covering social concept, and in your social concept we'll be covering culture. Here in culture topic, there's a lot of tendency for such types of questions and terminologies to come in your examination, right? So I have incorporated all the important terminologies and concepts that are relevant for your examination here, and let's just quickly, without any further delay, get to our yes. So what do we mean by culture? What is the culture? Let's just understand that first. So basically culture refers to the beliefs, values, behavior and material object that together form a people's way of life. How we understand culture is that there are certain beliefs of any society around or any around you, any community, right? So everybody have certain beliefs, value systems. They follow a certain type of behavior, and there are certain particular material objects that they have. So this what it does, what these small things, this belief, value system, and these some material object, what it does is it represents culture, right? And together it is a way of life of those people, right? So culture determines how we view the world around us. Basically culture includes the traditions we inherit and pass on it to our next generation, right? So what is culture? Culture includes the tradition we inherit and we pass on to the next generation. For instance, that there is some particular culture, there is some particular some ritual that we follow, right? And and of course my further generations will be following the same, or I as a somebody coming from Uttarakhand, right? So I follow certain culture that have been passed on to me by my previous generations, and of course my further generations will also follow. So culture also includes something of this sort. Culture includes the traditions as well, right? Culture basically here we define it as the totality of our shared language, knowledge, material objects, and behavior. As we saw in this first paragraph only, what does the culture means? It means that people in a community or somewhere, they have there is it's a totality, right? It's a totality of shared language, knowledge, material objects and behavior. There's certain people, there's a group of people, they behave or follow things or have certain similar type of value system, right? So that is what culture is about. Let's just come to the other one. Yes. So what it is basically, the knowledge, values, customs, and material objects are passed on from one group to another group of society over here. Culture is a toolkit for the survival of mankind. It is also known as the toolkit for the survival of mankind. See, culture is something that we, as I told you, right? My previous generations have been following something, and of course, my further generations will be following something. So, what is culture? Culture is basically a belief system, something, some material objects or something that they have also been doing. So it's basically a toolkit for the survival of mankind. It is a way of following something. And society and culture are independent. And of course, neither could exist without other. So both of them are highly dependent on each other. Without society, the culture won't exist, and without culture, society won't exist. And in order for a society to survive, there must be some laws, rules, and guidelines, all of which are culture driven. So here it is very, it can be said without any doubt that any society, in order to live or survive, there must be certain laws, rules, regulations, and culture is basically the unwritten laws, rules, and regulations. So it's culture means here that functionalists might call it a symbiotic relationship. Functionalists are those people, those who view the world as that everything, every good or bad in the society has a function to serve in the society, and it works in totality, right? So functionalists are those people, those thinkers, those who believe or those who perceive the society or the world like that. So they call it a symbiotic relationship. Symbiotic relationship over here is, for example, the relationship between a flower and honey, right? So here, functionalists call it a symbiotic relationship, and they say that culture and society, they both share a symbiotic relationship. They both have something, or they both are interdependent on each other, and they have something to do with the other one, right? The other one is very important, material and non-material culture. Yes. So when we understand this, I said that material culture and non-material culture. So every religion, every group of people, they of course they have their both material and non-material culture as well. Material culture, as I told you, that there is some particular object or some particular material that they have which represents their culture. And the same goes for non-material culture, is that it is consist of, but it consists of, it's a non-material thing. So it consists of ideas, value system, beliefs, particular attitudes, right? So of course, any Sikh or any Tamil person would be different in their material as well as non-material attitudes. Oh, sorry, culture. So in terms of material, you can see, right? Material is something, a turban that they wear, a comb, a kangi, which we call the Sikh people carry with themselves. But here, if we see from the somebody from the south, right, they have their own material culture. Of course, they would be having some particular that they would be carrying some particular material culture as well. For example, gold is considered very any ornament of gold is considered to be very precious, or any particular design of gold is considered to be very precious as their material culture, right? And when we come to the non-material culture, over here is certain attitudes, values, and belief. For example, the Sikh people, they have this, that service to the mankind is their prime belief, right? Coming for the other religion, they have of course their non-material culture, their attitude, value, and belief system is relates to something else. So that's what comprises your non-material culture. Let's just see a very good example of this, that the clothing, hairstyles, and jewelry are part of the material culture, but the appropriateness of wearing those certain clothes for specific events reflects their non-material culture. For example, we all wear, of course, in the summers, we all wear linen, or we all wear cotton, right? But at the same time, we should understand that this is a very good, serves as a very good example of material and non-material culture. As we can see that for example, let's just see, a Sikh might wear that cotton turban, right? But at the same time, any South Indian person, any Tamil person would wear a lungi of any cotton cloth. So here it refers to that their clothing, hairstyle, jewelry, some particular objects, these are all part of material culture. But at the same time, when it comes to the carrying those clothes, the appropriateness of those clothes, and how things should be carried in a certain manner, and what it should reflect, that comprises to be a non-material culture. I hope you're very much clear about the material and non-material culture. Let's just understand, like we have come to very important terminologies that they can ask you, and these are very important sociological concepts that they can ask you in your examination, right? So you should be very clear what does these stands for and what does these things mean. So here, let's just understand what does ethnocentrism stand for. So ethnocentrism is basically evaluating or judging somebody, another culture, based on how it compares to our own culture. No, I'll just give you a brief of it. Like, let me just finish it first. So, ethnocentrism is basically evaluating or judging another person's culture based on our culture, right? Or giving supremacy to our culture. We'll take the example as well. So here, ethnocentrism, as it has been defined by whom? It has been defined by a great sociologist, William Graham Sumner, right? So he described this term ethnocentrism as a belief or attitude that one's own culture is better than all other. For example, my culture. So if I meet you someday and you tell me, or you include me in your culture, or you include me in any of the tradition that you follow, and I say no, I think what you people are doing is very gross, and what I do is like what we do in our culture, we don't do this, right? We are better. Or if I say that no, eating with hands is so gross and we don't do this, we use fork and knife. So here, ethnocentrism is that I am evaluating or judging your culture with my own, right? Or there is, I am reflecting that supremacy of my culture over here, over yours, right? So a high level of appreciation of one's own culture is known as ethnocentrism. So here I've given an example also, that and this concept is being given by whom? It's given by a great sociologist, William Graham Sumner, right? Ethnocentrism. Here, the example of it is, there's someone from a country where dogs are considered dirty and unhygienic might find it off-putting to see a dog in a French restaurant. For example, you've been to a French restaurant and you go over there and you take your dog, and you in your country or wherever you in your culture, it is considered very unhygienic to even let a dog roam around wherever is your dining place. And even if and when you see any person that who have a separate chair for the dogs on the dining table. So it would be very off-putting for you, right? So this is what ethnocentrism is. So basically, you can also look in this example that two women are there and they have very different perspective based on their own culture. And what they are doing is they are evaluating or judging another lady for based on the supremacy of their own cultural norms, right? So here, of course, you can see with this everything that the other lady, the one in the bikini, is saying that everything is covered, but her nose, but her eyes. What a cruel male-dominated culture she belongs to, right? But at the same time, the other lady who's wearing a burqa, she's saying that nothing is covered but her eyes. What a cruel male-dominated culture over here, right? So here, both of them have different perspectives, and they both are evaluating and judging the other person's culture based on their own cultural norms, right? I hope it's pretty clear to you. I'm moving to the other one. Yes, cultural universals. What are cultural universals, and what does it basically means? So basically, cultural universals are patterns or traits that are globally common to all societies. So what does this mean? So one example is this, as that one example of a cultural universal is the family unit, right? The family is something, the concept of family or the institution of family is universal, right? It's family is something that you can see in all religion. Across all religions, you will see that the concept of family exists, right? That of course any child would come. So of course, it takes two people, and then their procreation would be the child, their offspring, their child, right? That makes up a family. So this concept of family, it exists everywhere and across all religion. Every human society recognize family as a basic unit, and it recognize family as structure that regulates reproduction and the care of children and all those stuff. So here, what we understand is that this is family is an example of cultural universal. That this is something that is present everywhere. It is pervasive in nature. That you will find it almost everywhere, and the culture of a family or family as an institution would exist everywhere, right? And it has been given by whom? This cultural universal term has been given by whom? So there's a great anthropologist, George Murdoch. So he first recognized the existence of cultural universals while studying the system of kinship around the world. So he said the concept of family, the family as an institution, it exists everywhere, and it is not just bound to a particular culture or something. So it exists everywhere, right? While you were studying about kinship, you understand, right? Your relationships with people, how you call somebody, how is related to you as a sister-in-law, mother-in-law, father-in-law, or your aunt, uncle, right? So while he was studying kinship systems around the world or family institutions around the world, he recognized that culture family is a this culture universals. He understood he recognize the concept of culture universals, right? So here in this example, you can also see that the concept of God exists across all religions. You do not, that everybody, every individual in a society, of course, there would be some society that who do not follow it, of course, but majorly you will see that there is a lot of course, across all religions, there they follow God, right? So here, when we are on cultural imperialism. So let's just understand how what is cultural imperialism. So here we were understanding the basic meaning of imperialism. So we all know that imperialism, of course, it can be defined as a doctrine, political strategy, practice, state policy, or advocacy, right? That consists in extending power by territorial acquisition or by extending political or economic control outward over the other areas. So that is why cultural imperialism is that cultural imperialism basically it refers to the most broadly to the exercise of domination and cultural relationship in which the values, practices, meanings of a powerful foreign culture are imposed upon one or more native culture. Let's just take a very good example of it as the American culture, the imposing of the over dominance of American culture over the other developing countries, right? For example, their media or their fast food chains, or let's just take here the imposition of the pop culture, right? So here it is not, it is considered to be negative in nature because, of course, cultural imperialism's negative effects are the loss of culture, loss of language, preference of for Western brands or over the native or native Indian brands, right? Or of course, for any developing country, cultural appropriation you must have seen, right? And cultural protectionism. So here, this is what cultural imperialism stands for. So I have not mentioned it here, but Skiller is the person. Schiller. Skiller is the person who defined cultural imperialism. And he defined it as the sum of the process by which a society is brought into the modern world system, and how basically its dominating stratum is attracted, pressured, forced, and sometimes it bribed into shaping social institutions to correspond to the values and structures of the dominating culture. Let's just take the example of US and the other developing countries, right? So here I have given a very short description over here, written a very short description for you over here, that cultural imperialism may include the work of international aid agencies, right? For example, I just say UNICEF or World Bank or Greenpeace. These are some prominent international aid agencies, right, who introduce modern technological like agriculture methods or not agriculture. Okay, it was just related to agriculture only, but not just agriculture, but other that we will help eliminating or eradicating poverty and doing such things from developed countries while overlooking indigenous ones, right? So here I have given the example of basically agriculture, right? So now what they are doing is they are introducing new sorts of technology that has been practiced over there in the Western countries, that suits for the Western countries, and we, even without realizing the or exploring the or exploring our indigenous varieties or resources, we are adopting them because there is a dominance in of course adopting them, right? So this is what cultural imperialism stands for. Of course, this picture might help you that how there is an over dominance of the uh, developed worlds on the underdeveloped worlds. Let's just come to the other one. So yeah, here culture are of two types also. I missed it, right? So here culture are of two types basically. One is the ideal culture and the other one is the real culture. So what is the ideal culture? Ideal culture is something that values portray an ideal culture, right? The standard society would like to embrace and live up to. So basically, this is an aspiration. When we talk about ideal culture is basically an aspiration. What the society thinks that it wish to look up to, live up to like that. They wish to be like that, right? For example, in an ideal society, would think of an egalitarian world, right? Or what an ideal society would think of that there is. That there are two people, they get married, and then they have their kids, and then they work hard and they serve the country, and what all that they do not expect as an ideal culture, right? Or from individuals. So here values which portray an ideal culture the standard society would like to embrace and live up to. So this is what the ideal culture reflects. But ideal culture is different from the real culture. Real, so there is a very good example is the real and the real culture. But what we see, right, and what actually is, what we see on Instagram is a reel, and what we are actually facing over here, what how we are actually living is the real culture. So here the society that have been portrayed over there, or in the movies that the society that have been portrayed over there is the ideal culture. For example, you must have seen some old Bollywood movies, how they portray families to be, but but now in the real sense you realize how families are, how that there is a lot of power dynamics and a lot of things in the family that keeps on going, right? So it is a serves as a very good example that there's a difference between the ideal culture and real culture. Real culture is basically the way society actually is, the decayed version, that how in the rawest form, the barest form the society is, and what occurs and what exists. So this is basically and it, of course you can confer from the of course from the word itself that what does real culture reflects, right? So basically in an ideal culture there would be example that there in an ideal culture there would be no traffic accidents, murders, poverty, or racial tensions. But for example, in the real culture, police officers, lawmakers, educators, and social workers constantly they strive to prevent or repair those accidents, crime, and injustices, right? So here this serves to be a very good example that what we live up to and what we And that's standard that we mean think for ourselves. But in the reality, there are other things as well that in the movies you won't see. The movie portrays a very good ideal culture for the family, right? This is what happens, and this is what is not there. But in the family dynamics, you will see, in the real ones, you will see that how what a family is, right? So I think you're very much clear with the concept of ideal culture and real culture. Let's move to the other one, which is very important: sanctions. So what are sanctions? Sanctions are basically, it gives you a way of living, that this is how we have to behave, that this is appropriate or this is not appropriate. So what is that? It's a way of social control which a society puts on you, right? So there are various sanctions in my society also, that as a lady I should not be doing this, or as a married or as a mother, as a married lady I shouldn't be doing this, or as a mother I won't be shouldn't be doing this. So right, and if I do this, so the society would do this to me. So this is basically, sanctions are a form of social control, that how individuals living in the society should be controlled. And sanctions are something that are being created by the society upon the individual. So basically it is a way of encouraging conformity to the cultural norms, right? Now, the norms that have been created by the society are encouraged by the way of sanctions, right? And they are basically a form of social control, right? So in sociology, sanction refers to reactions that are used to encourage or discourage someone else's behavior in accordance with the social norms and values. So as I told you, what sanctions are basically reactions, right? That are, of course, used by the society either to encourage or discourage any particular sort of behavior with social norms, of course, some discourage someone else's behavior in accordance with the social norms and values, right? And with this, we finished today's class. And in your other class of social concepts, of course, this class was now not very extended. And there are, of course, a lot many sociological terms which are very interesting, like they were today. And of course, I'll be covering them in the other class. So in other class, we'll be, of course, covering many other things, such as what is acculturation, assimilation, enculturations, right? So these are, of course, related to each other, but of course, they're very interesting sociological concepts. And you'll be able to, of course, in your exam, once you are able to understand these concepts, you'll be able to eliminate the wrong options in your exam, and able to take the right ones, right? So with this thought, we'll end today's class, and I'll meet you in the next one. Thank you.